Growing up, it was just me, my mom, and John and Jason. My mom and dad divorced when I was pretty young.
I remember growing up, really loved being around my sister. Really looked up to her. Had a twin brother we did everything together.
We moved around a couple places when we were young, and when my parents had separated, we moved back to Waco, where my mom was from. She remarried a man. At first, he was a pretty nice guy, and they were good at first, but then they started using together.
Got into addiction with him. It was like every weekend I was getting beat up.
I can always remember this time being at the stoplight. I remember my mom looking over, and when she looked straight, he punched her in the eye, and I remember her eye just swelling up. I remember the cops would come, we'd be in the cop car. I remember there'd be drugs in the car, so they would end up, I remember one time putting the drugs in my Skittles and putting the Skittles back in my back pocket so they wouldn't find it, just so nobody would get arrested, because we were all scared.
I met Jason when we were in middle school. Didn't really get to know him until I was 22 years old. In 2000, Jason and I got together. Our relationship was just centered around going out. We were at the bars all the time, just going out, drinking, using drugs. In 2003, I had started using meth. I was praying every day and asking God to help us, to help me, to be a mom. For my son's 10th birthday, it was in March of 2006, he asked me, he told me he knew what he wanted for his birthday. He was real excited about it. He was, and I remember feeling bad because I didn't have a job, and I was like, how am I going to get him anything? But I asked him what he wanted, and he said, I want to go to church. I've never been to church before. The day before his birthday, I went to the grocery store. A stranger came up to me. She had started up a conversation with me. Then a little bit later, she came up to me again, and she asked me if she could pray for me, that she felt the Lord wanted her to pray for me. I knew I needed prayer. And so I told her yes, she could pray for me. And then she asked me how she could pray for me. And I just remember my first thought was, I'm not going to tell this girl all my stuff that I'm going through. And so I told her, you can pray that I get a job. I said, I really need a job. And I thanked her for praying. And she gave me her number. And as soon as I left the grocery store, I seen my old boss walk in. And when I seen him, I hadn't seen him in at least about a year. And he was walking in as I was walking out, and he was like, where have you been? Like he had been looking for me. And I was in shock. And he said, are you working? He asked me if I was working, and I told him no, and he said, well, come back and work for me. Shortly after that, I started going to church. I found a church, and me and my boys were going, and I remember hearing this verse that always stood out to me early on. It's where God says, I set before you life and death, blessings or curses. Choose life so that you and your children may live. And I remember thinking about that, and just thinking about how I was choosing death every day, and I was choosing the things of destruction. And a couple weeks after going to church, after hearing that, I gave my life to Jesus, and he took that away from me. All the drugs, the alcohol, everything that I had been doing for so long and trying to stop, it was finally gone.
We were just kids playing baseball, and then junior high, I remember that one semester of junior high from September to December, life changed completely. And I went from being a little kid that went inside when the street light came on to I tried smoking cigarettes, I tried drinking, and I tried cocaine for the first time at 12 years old. I ended up getting discharged from the Marine Corps because I tested positive for cocaine. So I had 2 sons, just got discharged from the Marine Corps, married, been cheating on my wife on and off, didn't know how to be faithful and responsible. And then my drug addiction it controlled my life. I remember seeing my twin brother, who a few years before was so lost and so broken and so empty. And I looked at him and I saw him living a brand new life. And he was just full of peace. He didn't come around and try to tell me that I needed to do this or I needed to do that. He wasn't trying to preach to me or anything. I just watched his life. I was sitting there tired, rubbing my head like this, and my brother comes over to the house and he's like, John, man, you tired? And I was like, man, I'm tired. And he wasn't talking about physically, he was talking about right here and right here. He's asked me a lot of times if I was ready, and I would always be like, I'm good. But that time when he asked me, I said, you know what, man? I'm ready, man. I felt free.
By the time I was 12 years old, I was already committing crimes in and out of juveniles. I remember the first time I used cocaine, I was 18 years old. I was about 21 when I met my kid's dad. We got married. I was about 25. We started using meth. We started fighting. And it was an abusive relationship. I was doing the same thing. The same thing. I was putting my kids through the same thing. Their dad went to prison. I went to prison right after him. When you're in jail, oh man, I'm in here, I need to get out. But this time it was different. I was like, oh no. The shame, the guilt. What about my kids? Cried out to Jesus. And I was like, Lord, please help me. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to live this life again. I don't want to do this no more. And, something just washed over me, just changed. I just felt it. I just continued to be faithful. And I could see the little things happening. I've been clean almost 7 years. My relationship with my children started to grow. I don't know, just even with my grandchildren, just them talking to me. They'll never know the old me. They'll never know anything like that. My granddaughter holds my face when she goes to sleep. Today I work at Unbound. I'm an advocate for survivors of human trafficking. It's just amazing. Jesus breaks cycles. He's a chain breaker. He's a way maker.
And then in 2017, I went to the Mercy House banquet, and my son John was giving his testimony. And I heard the Lord, and it wasn't a whisper, and it was loud, and I felt the Spirit just come down and just go home. I haven't been high since. It was like drug addiction was just taken off me. I have been clean. Just last week was my 4 years that I haven't been high. I haven't been using. I haven't wanted to use. The taste, the feeling, everything is gone. It's like I don't even remember what it was like, to get high. I was interested in the Antioch Discipleship School, so I went ahead and I applied for it, and I was accepted. And when we went on the retreat, I was with the in the little cabins that we were in with women, and there was like 10 of us in there, and there was a young girl that was there, Rachel Owen. And she told me, I know your sons, John and Jason. They used to come to my mom and dad's life group, and I was like 8 years old. And your son Jason used to say at the end, before life group and at the end, please pray for my mom. And she said, and I was praying for you 10 years ago. And look at us today. We're in the Antioch Discipleship School together.
When I was locked up, I remember I had made this list of all these people in my life, family members, cousins, friends, people I used to use with, people I knew who had sold. And I just started to pray for them. Every day I had this list, I'd pull this list out and I would go one by one and just pray, asking God that they would meet him, that they would know him. And I remember when I came out, and even when I saw my family and my friends, that they were still in that life, it didn't change my heart to keep praying for them. See, I don't know, I can't explain it, but it was like, I wasn't praying that they would change how I wanted them to change. I was praying that they would meet God too. And so I started to pray for John. I kept praying for Missy. I was praying for my mom. I remember that day whenever I prayed, and I remember when I heard God speak to me, and when I chose to respond to him, the journey he's taken me on since then, that's the main thing I want for people I want people to, my family, is to know him, is to hear his voice and to be with him, to have that relationship with him. And so it's been my heart and it's been my prayer for my people, over the years. And here we are today, seeing my brother know him, my sister know him, my mom know him, my dad knowing him, and other family members and cousins, and it just keeps going and going and going. And so I'm so thankful for Jesus, for never giving up on us,